The Biden administration is appealing the decision, striking down its mask mandate and all federal transportation, including airlines, buses, trains, and so on. This despite the ubiquitous images of people literally dancing in the aisles of airplanes, celebrating the end of this pointless thing. Not only is this appeal a colossally stupid political move, it is also a legal loser. The left had a meltdown this week over the judge who killed the mandate. But I've now had the chance to read the entire decision. And the reason they are attacking the judge and not her judgment is that the opinion was entirely sound. It is well reasoned, it is methodical, it is well supported legally, and in its descriptions of this administration's executive overreach, it is absolutely devastating. Here is what the judge, Catherine Kimball Mizell of the Middle District of Florida, found. First, the CDC had no independent authority to issue such a sweeping mandate. And any powers it did have would have to have been granted to it by Congress. So did Congress empower the CDC to enact such a broad mandate? No, found the court. See, back in the 1940s, Congress authorized the CDC to enact regulations aimed at preventing the spread of communicable diseases. This is what the DOJ relied on in arguing the CDC does have the power to mandate masks on federal transportation. But the law at issue provides examples of what the CDC could regulate. And it doesn't come close to gargantuan powers like forcing private citizens to wear garments on their faces for hours at a time. It covers things like fumigation, disinfection, sanitation, and so on. Sanitation, that's our hook, so thought the CDC. That's how we'll get them masked up. But the court was not convinced that a mask sanitizes anything. Sanitize, it found, means to clean something, which a mask clearly does not. But zoom out a bit, all right? And it is clear that neither Congress nor the CDC themselves ever envisioned powers like this for this regulatory agency. Prior to COVID, this law had been very rarely invoked. The most radical thing it had been used for was to prevent the import of small turtles due to salmonella risks. That's it. Then COVID hit, and the CDC was suddenly drunk on its own power, using this 75-year-old statute to shut down the cruise ship industry, to stop landlords from evicting tenants who hadn't paid their rent, and then to enact this mask mandate. All three moves have now been struck down by the courts. The court looked at the CDC's behavior and said to agree that it has such power would be to bestow the CDC with newly discovered, quote, breathtaking, unheralded authority. Something more akin to state police power than to an agency regulation over cleaning. So no, Congress never intended to grant little Rochelle Walensky or her predecessors with the powers of a king. And even if it did, the CDC went about it all wrong, found the court. You see, it would have had to provide the public with a chance to comment on this proposal for a period of 30 days. Why didn't the CDC do that? The CDC claimed, quote, given the public health emergency of COVID, it simply couldn't. Judge Kimball Mizell saw right through that lie. This mandate was not issued until nearly a year into the pandemic, 11 months after the president had declared COVID a national emergency, and at a time when COVID cases were on the decline. 30 days now couldn't be spared for the public to weigh in on an agency rule that had the power to send them to jail? Nah. Nor did the CDC comply with the requirement that in dispensing with that 30-day notice and comment period, it provide a brief statement of the reasons why involving the peons of the public was allegedly impracticable. Instead, it offered a single conclusory sentence about this being a public health emergency. And that's it. The court pointed out that when another federal agency mandated that certain healthcare workers get the vaccine, that agency provided 4 pages of reasoning. And 4 justices of the Supreme Court would later find even that was insufficient. The CDC here, 1 line, public health emergency. They didn't respect the public enough to even explain why the people should have no say whatsoever in, quote, a regulation that would constrain their choices and actions via threats of criminal and civil penalties, including a $1,000 fine, a year in jail, and civil penalties from the FAA for, quote, unsafe behavior. Finally, the court found that the CDC failed in its obligation to explain why it rejected viable alternatives to mandatory masking. The CDC's only response was to repeat its oft-cited belief that universal masking reduces transmission of COVID. Okay, said the court, but this mandate did not require universal masking. It allowed anyone under 2 years old not to mask, people with certain disabilities not to mask. It exempted people who were, quote, eating, drinking, or taking medication, as well as those who were, quote, experiencing difficulty breathing or feeling winded. The court pointed all of this out, getting right to the heart of what we've all known from the start of this thing. How does any of this make sense when we can have the mask down for long periods while we're eating and drinking? What you knew was nuts while on board that airplane, the court saw too. You weren't crazy. It was all a farce. And the court saw right through it. Thus, the court concluded that in addition to being not authorized by Congress and not being appropriately enacted because it skipped the necessary notice and comment period, this rule could not stand because it was arbitrary, it was capricious, it was unnecessary, it was nonsensical. For all of these reasons, the mandate was found unlawful, which is why I believe this ruling will be upheld on appeal. It'll go up to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, which is a more right-leaning court. And the U.S. Supreme Court is more right-leaning these days as well. So one, if not both of those courts, is going to wind up upholding this. I do not believe the Supreme Court, if it gets there, will strike down this ruling. Finally, a word on this judge. Her left-wing critics excoriated her because she never tried a case before reaching the federal bench. But the real problem they have with her is that she was a Trump appointee who once clerked for Justice Clarence Thomas. As Glenn Greenwald pointed out yesterday on this program, you know who else never tried a case before getting to the federal bench? Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan, who's now 2 levels above Judge Mizell on the federal bench. Don't remember the liberals complaining about that then. It is true that the American Bar Association rated Judge Kimball Mizell not qualified, despite her extensive experience clerking for federal judges in the most prestigious courts in the United States and her time litigating at one of the best firms in the country. But make no mistake, the ABA cannot stand conservatives. It has a long history of rating as unqualified conservative judges whose positions on abortion, affirmative action, and the like it opposes. Its bias toward conservatives has been the subject of books, articles, endless commentary, and so on. It has deemed not qualified some of the most respected judges in the country and has a particular penchant for doing so to conservative women and minorities. Because as we all know, the left reveres identity, skin color, sexual identity, gender identity, unless the person is a Republican or not woke. But Judge Kimball Mizell does not seem to care about currying favor with the left, the ABA, or any particular group. She cares about the law. And thank goodness, by the way, for Mitch McConnell and President Trump, who, despite their differences, worked together to get judges like her on the federal bench. Cryptocurrency may represent the future of money. It's one of the most exciting investment opportunities to come around for some time. But what about the taxes? With an Alto crypto IRA, you can trade crypto like Bitcoin and avoid or defer the taxes. Alto's crypto IRA is the easy way to get crypto into an IRA. You can trade all you want without the tax headache. Create an account in just a few minutes. No setup charges, no account fees. Secure trading 24/7 through Alto's integration with Coinbase. You ready to take your investments to the next level? Diversify like the pros and trade without tax headaches. Open an Alto crypto IRA with as little as $10. Just go to altoira.com/Megyn. That's ALTOIRA.com/MEGYN. Start investing in cryptocurrency today. Go to altoira.com/Megyn. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.